everybody, this is Yanni Collins and welcome back to Oz Living. Now we all have heard about the major buzzword that's floating on the internet as well as in real life, and that is blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies. But not many people know too much about how the business works, let alone how the marketing works behind it. So today I'm joined by Motti Peer, CEO of the leading global technology PR firm, Reblonde. The company has presented over 300 cryptocurrency companies including Waves, Bancor, Serene Labs, Status.im, Celsius, Fusion, WePower, and Government of Malta. So, Motti, it is so great to have you on the show.
Thank you for having me.
It is such a pleasure to have you on. So before we get into Reblonde, I'm curious about your background and what essentially had led you to establishing Reblonde in the first place. Tell us all about your origin story.
Yeah, so just like every Israeli, I actually started my career in the army. And once, I concluded my service there, I started working in finance in various positions from, trading to my last role, which was hedge fund manager. During that time, I recognized that the startup nation, this is how Israel, is called, has a need for specific and unique practices for marketing its startups. And so I formed the company that was 16 years ago, back in 2006. And that actually makes us a unique breed compared with many of the other agencies who are currently operating in the crypto realm, because many of the others opened shop sometimes in the past 3, 4, 5 years when the total market cap of cryptocurrencies have risen above 50 or $60 billion. So we were doing PR 2 years before Satoshi Nakamoto came out with a white paper about Bitcoin. We were already doing a tech PR. Now, I don't know if you did PR in the past, but if you did, I'm sure that you know that PR starts and ends with relationships. And we had a very, very long time to form and then nurture our relationships with the various media outlets and journalists. And now we're in a position where we can leverage it in order to help our clients reach their goals and their KPIs. Early 2017, I have discovered the potential of us helping crypto and blockchain companies. So I made a move on it and established a unit dedicated to their needs. I literally diverted our best people into the department. I also hired a couple of Bitcoin maximalists, as they're called, into the agency in order to instantly inject the necessary knowledge into the agency. And then we kept on doing what we were already doing for over a decade before that. And that's top-notch technology PR. The only thing that we had to add into the mix of things was the crypto vertical, and I will touch on that in a minute or so. So very, very quickly, we found ourselves working with some of the top names in the sector. You mentioned a few, but we working with companies such as Bancor and Waves from Russia and Fusion from China and Status.im and many other projects that I'm sure you're familiar with. Currently serving over 50 crypto and blockchain projects. Most of them are well funded. Nevertheless, some of them are still raising. We're working with a handful of crypto VCs. We're working with half a dozen exchanges. We have clients from China to Brazil. So we're literally covering the entire globe.
Amazing. So Reblonde was founded in 2006, and that's like 16 years of operations and giving value to these companies. So more power to you guys. And now talking about marketing in the crypto space, what are some of the ways that you would say it's different as opposed to marketing tech projects in general? Or how would you say the marketing has evolved and shifted into this year?
That's a fantastic question. So the short answer is, it's not much different than any conventional marketing. So the longer version of the answer is that I'm a great believer in a marketing method called the peso, just like the Mexican currency. And the peso stands for 4 major pillars. You have the P, which is paid media, basically everything that you can pay for to gain traction, to gain eyeballs, to gain exposure, to gain recognition. And then the E of the peso is earned media, which is what I do. It's PR. You actually take a story, you utilize storytelling to tell a story from an angle or a perspective which is going to be interesting or lucrative to someone who already created himself, brand notoriety, a journalist like yourself, for example. And then you approach this lady or gentleman, usually utilizing personal connections which you formed in advance. And you're telling them, listen, I have a story which I think is going to be interesting for your readers or viewers. So please, cover the story. And if she did, or if it did, you earned it, hence earn media. Now, the S of the peso is shared media, all the social networks that we are well familiar with. And the O of the peso is on media, everything which is under the direct ownership and the control of the brand, of the project, of the company. So it could be your website, it could be your blog, it could be your mobile app, should you have one, and so forth. Now, the idea is to have all four pillars, paid, earned, shared, and owned, working with you and working in synergy. Now, let me describe to you how the flows goes. So let's assume that I'm going to work very, very hard and get to my wonderful client, Oz Finance, right up in Forbes. And Forbes is an amazing publication. I mean, it's being read by 40 million people per month, and that's absolutely fantastic. But it is not the entire world. And this is why I'm going to ask the good people of Oz Finance to take that Forbes write-up and place it in their website, their own media, under a section called Press. And from now on, whoever is going to go into Oz Finance's website is going to see, oh, they were covered by Forbes, fantastic. And then I'm going to ask them to take this Forbes write-up and publicize it through their social network. And if they already created a community for themselves of a few hundred people, or potentially a few millions of people, so they're going to get exposed to that Forbes write-up as well. And then I'm going to ask them to take a small budget, a few hundreds of dollars or possibly a few thousands of dollars, and actually create a paid campaign to targeted audience so they will read that Forbes article. And then, last but not least, still in paid media, I'm going to ask them to approach companies such as Outbrain and Taboola and ask them to create a paid campaign that will allow that Forbes write-up to be placed in other publications like the Washington Post or CNBC or the New York Times. And all of a sudden, this write-up, which was potentially read by 40 million people in Forbes, is open to an exposure of over a few hundreds of millions of readers. So again, marketing is basically the same. Now, the main difference between crypto and blockchain and mainstream, as we call it, obviously it will have many different and various components, is the fact that crypto and blockchain is rather, I'm not going to say censored, but is rather blocked by quite a few major advertising gateways such as Google and Facebook and Twitter. You won't be able to promote your crypto and blockchain project through paid advertising. And this actually presents a challenge. And because of that, specifically in crypto and blockchain, PR is really, really, really important to bypass this restriction that you have to freely advertise your project. Very long answer. I hope that it answered your question.
No, definitely it did. And I especially agreed with the storytelling. I mean, you really have to go above and beyond in establishing an emotional connection with your audience and really try to speak their language. So, I mean, getting into these media, major media outlets is really the key strategy to go with. And so what do you think is the most challenging in this process?
So again, bypassing these restrictions that some of the major, large publishers will place is very challenging in our particular sector. And so a conventional high-tech paid campaign will go on Google and Facebook, while if it's a crypto project, it will go on, as a banner campaign or a paid campaign within specific crypto publications such as CoinDesk or Cointelegraph. So that's actually the major challenge. Most of the other practices are literally identical.
So what do you think is the best social media platform right now that work wonders and that is best suited for crypto projects to advertise their campaigns? Because what I think what's happening right now is that companies are building their presence in every single medium. So do you think that's the right way to do it?
As far as social media, obviously the conventional social platforms such as Facebook and Instagram, and obviously Twitter. Twitter is the king of crypto and blockchain conversation. Nevertheless, in the crypto sector, other social networks were adopted and utilized quite heavily, from Bitcoin Talk to Reddit. Obviously, as far as messaging applications, Telegram is highly used, and also Discord. So there are quite a few similarities. Nevertheless, the crypto community adopted quite a few other tools and channels that are not utilized as much by other mainstream type technology. But let me expand a little bit as to the practices of promoting your crypto and blockchain project. So we believe that the best way to do so is by working on the three elements or three components that can help you publicize your project. So the first one is going to be ongoing PR and media relations. So basically you need to work on your messaging, draft the appropriate press releases, map the relevant publications for each and every story. And once you're happy with it, you need to approach the journalists, and as I said before, utilize personal connections in order to convince them that the story should get published. Now, the idea usually is to get the story published in the relevant verticals to each project. So if you have a crypto project, obviously crypto publications are going to be very relevant. Publications which I mentioned before, like CoinDesk, Cointelegraph, Blockworks, The Block, and similar. And reason for it being because this is where you're going to find people with Bitcoin and Ether already in their wallets. And obviously they are susceptible to get involved with your project. So getting a name there is going to be essential. Second vertical is going to be technology because, well, you have developed an impressive technology. So getting a name in publications such as TechCrunch, VentureBeat, and Wired will be super effective as well. Third vertical is going to be business and finance, especially if you have plans to raise additional funds. So it could be the European Financial Times and Forbes and Fortune, the Wall Street Journal and Bloomberg, regardless if you're planning to raise from institutional investors or accredited investors, or even if at some point you will decide to go ahead and raise it straight from the crowd. So once you're able to get your story published in each of those verticals, again, crypto, technology, business, and finance, well, I'm assuming that you have a strong team and a solid idea behind you, and from the PR perspective, you stand have a very good chance of having a successful marketing campaign. So that's the first component, ongoing PR and media relations. Now, the second component is everything that has to do with speaking opportunities, events and conferences. Because getting anyone from the leadership of the project on stage as a speaker or even as a panelist in front of a crowd of a few hundred relevant people, amongst whom you can usually find half a dozen journalists, obviously will have very good PR value. You need to remember that these journalists are actually showing up to the event in order to hear and see whatever is being said on stage. And then those journalists are going back to their editorials in order to report about it. It's super important also to meet with the press during those events. And obviously, if you have anything interesting to say at that particular time, you should expect to see press coverage as a result. So that's the second component, speaking opportunities. Now, the last and third super important component is everything that has to do with thought leadership, guest posts or bylines, as we call them, in order to create for you an aura or a reputation, let's call it, of expert in your field. Someone who understands the material, has the right knowledge to lead the sector, has a proper vision for the future of the sector, is all going to be super important for your ability to lead a successful project. And again, the best way to do so is by running thought leadership. So we're helping our clients to do that. Obviously, we're relying on their knowledge and their expertise. We're doing the actual writing. We have a fantastic content department in-house. And once approved, you should make sure that it will get published as well. So in summary, through these three components, ongoing PR, speaking opportunities, and thought leadership, you're able to create enough content and enough news and enough information to send to the press, thus keeping your project and your target audience for mine, frankly, it's not really important whether the target audience are potential investors or potential partners or just, users and clients.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are very masterful tips. Thank you for that. Now, if you think of a project that has done supreme work from branding, product creation, uniqueness, and From a marketing vantage point, which company is that comes to mind for you?
Well, I love all of my clients. Obviously, I think that Oz Finance is very unique and has true utility. This is not another, Me Too type of project. It's not another layer one blockchain. It's not another, NFT project. Here you have a very unique selling proposition for the use of crypto. It provides very unique utility for people that has this or particular needs. And I really like the work that they're doing.
Wow, thank you so much. Really appreciate those kind words. Now, and also, I think, in my opinion, I think one major challenge of marketing in this day and age is that it's so hard to stand out and to be able to differentiate yourself from everybody else, especially when everyone is shouting all at once. So what would be the best piece of advice or golden rules that you would give to projects, especially startups who are trying to make a name for themselves in a space?
Yeah. So obviously, I'm looking at everything from a very narrow perspective of a publicist. So it's going to be from the PR perspective. As I told you at the beginning of our conversation, PR starts and ends with relationships, and I think that this is something that the project should be working at from the get-go. Go to the conferences, make sure to network with people. If you're comfortable doing that, fantastic. And if not, you should fake it until you make it. Speak with everyone, especially journalists, especially editors, potential investors. Network, create these connections. And if you're able to do that successfully, then your project has already a better chance to become a successful one.
Now, who would you say is your inspiration for your work? Do you have a role model?
Well, I look, to the biggest and the best. So worldwide, obviously, it's Edelman. I think that they're doing fantastic work for decades now. And in Israel, my very good friend Rani Rav, who's not dealing with crypto and blockchain, but he's considered to be number one here in Tel Aviv. I look up to him. I really like him. He's my friend, and his son is my client as well.
Oh, wow. Any expansion plans on the works for Reblonde?
Well, I have to tell you that we had an office in Boston in the past and also in Cyprus. But there is one thing that I learned during COVID, that there is really no meaning or overweight to have a physical office anywhere. If there is something that we all learned actually in the past 2 years, that you're pretty much able to perform any type of work remotely, whether it's through Zoom and so forth. It is super important for us to participate in the conferences, and this is something that we spoke about, beforehand about the recent AIBC conference in Dubai, because this is where you actually form these relationships and friendships, which will allow us and everyone else, for that matter, to perform the work. So right now, currently, we don't have any plans to establish physical offices anywhere around the world, but we are expanding right here. Our team right now comprises of 30 PR professionals, and I believe that we will double that sometime within the next 3 years or so.
Well, we definitely look forward to watching your progress there. Now, for the last thing, what is the next big thing for you in the space? Do you think it's going to be DeFi? Do you think it's going to be NFT, Web3, or GameFi?
Yeah, so obviously it's all of the above, but I'm waiting, for this current bear cycle to conclude so we can actually emerge with something new. So obviously the previous, cycle was for ICOs. And then we went into a bear cycle, a crypto winter, as they call it, and then re-emerged with DeFi, which then was NFT or was added to. I believe that we will re-emerge with something new, which all of us are not yet quite familiar with, and I'm super excited toward it happening. Although I don't know exactly what it is going to be.
Well, Motti, this has been so insightful. Thank you so much for educating us today. It is such a pleasure to have you on, and I would love to have you back anytime you want. When you're free, let us know. And I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
With pleasure, and thank you so much for having me.